You've probably seen the clips by now.
I'm telling you, this is a bad idea, and you're gonna regret not listening to people like us who lived under Sharia law.
Thank you, Eddie.
Angry residents packing McKinney City Hall, objecting to a proposed mosque on Virginia Parkway. People are yelling at the council. They're demanding that the project be stopped. But that is not the full story. Because most of the people in that room appear to be arguing as if the council is deciding whether the mosque should be there at all. By that point, that was no longer the question in front of the city. And the people who understood the process knew that. Everyone else was reacting to what they thought was happening. To understand what was actually being decided, you have to go much further back than that meeting. The zoning framework governing this property traces back to 1997. That matters because the existing rules already allowed religious assembly on the property. And then in 2017, McKinney City Council revisited the zoning of this exact tract. They added single-family residential as another option, but they left the older development framework in place. So years before the McKinney Islamic Association acquired the property, the basic land use permissions were already sitting there. That is the first gate. Then in 2024, the McKinney Islamic Association asked the city to change the zoning. Why? Because the existing planned development had a major limitation. An individual building could not exceed 15,000 square feet. The association wanted one much larger mosque. So this time the city actually did have discretion. The question was, will you change the rules to accommodate the larger project? Planning and zoning recommended denial. The association eventually withdrew the request, but something important happened during that process. Their architect, Richard Brown, of RBA Architects, explained that if the zoning change didn't happen, the project could still be built under the existing rules by using multiple smaller buildings. And that is basically what happened. When the project came back, it wasn't one giant building anymore. It was three. A 15,000 square foot sanctuary, a 10,236 square foot classroom building, and a 7,337 square foot gym and multi-use building. Notice the first number, 15,000 square feet. That is the maximum individual building size allowed under the old development rules. They didn't win the zoning fight. They redesigned the project around it. And once they were working inside the rules that were already there, the question in front of the city changed. In 2024, the city was being asked, will you change the zoning? In 2026, the question became, does this site plan comply with the zoning that already exists? City staff said yes, and staff described approval of a compliant site plan as a ministerial function. In normal language, if the applicant meets the rules already on the books, the city has far less freedom to simply say no. And this is where the public conversation gets misleading. The news clips focus on the shouting, Sharia, Christianity, traffic, prejudice. Those arguments may matter politically, but they were not the same question the city was legally deciding. The crowd was arguing about whether the mosque should be there. The city was evaluating whether the redesigned site plan complied with permissions that had existed for years. And once you put the timeline together, the story looks completely different. 1997. The development framework is created. 2017. The city revisits the exact property and leaves the underlying framework intact. 2024. The association asked for more flexibility. That request meets resistance and is withdrawn. Then the project is redesigned to fit the old rules. And by 2026, hundreds of people arrive at City Hall demanding that council stop something when the city's remaining discretion has become dramatically narrower. And that's the real lesson here. Public outrage is not the same thing as public leverage. By the time everyone was yelling at City Hall, the most important question had already changed. The underlying use was already allowed. The discretionary zoning fight had already happened. The applicant had redesigned the project around the rules that survived it. So if you want to understand what your city is doing, don't just watch the meeting everyone is angry about. Find the earlier gate, the zoning ordinance, the rezoning, the site plan, the variance, the plat, and pay attention to the moment when somebody asks the city to change the rules, because that is often where the real discretion still exists. By the time the room fills up, you may already be watching the end of the process.